this video we'll be covering proper setup procedure. This is what you want to do to keep everything nice and clean. You don't want transfer of germs or blood or any kind of pathogens from like one thing to another. So this is the proper way to set up before you tattoo. So first thing we do, before anything else of course, is we put on some rubber gloves. Of course, like I said in the other video, if you watched it, if you ever see anybody tattooing or setting up or anything without rubber gloves, just run, or this video's for you. Make sure to wear rubber gloves before you do anything. Just keep everything nice and clean. Most people, or most tattoo artists, use non-powdered latex gloves, or they have another kind of like silicone-based glove. I just use non-powdered latex gloves because they're cheap. Because I have a medical supplies place like right across the street, and the boxes are like 120 count for like $2. So that's why I buy these. You can get them at Walmart, Walgreens, anywhere. The second thing we want to do is we want to put down plastic on the surface where all our material is going to be. And then just to put it down, we masking tape. So this is pretty much going to be our workable surface right here. Now everything we do, we're going to do on top of this. If you, I don't know, put your bottle or gun or something a little bit off, that's fine, because we're going to re-wipe it down anyway. Before I did this, I wiped it down with Cavicide, which is it's just a type of medical grade cleaning material that just kills any type of germs or anything. I didn't show that, but I wiped it down with Cavicide first. And then we're going to put a paper towel on top just for another layer. This just helps keep everything clean. And if you drop maybe a cup of ink or something down here, the paper towel is going to absorb it, so it doesn't like make a complete mess if you make a mistake. Next thing, we're going to take our petroleum jelly and popsicle stick, and we're going to just put a little bit down on the paper, and then just put the popsicle stick over here. Sometimes I put my ink on a popsicle stick. Sometimes I have little cup holders that I use. They're like just little metal things, but just for this, we'll put it on a stick. Next thing is our green soap. This is what we use to clean off the tattoo while we're tattooing, to make sure the surface is nice and clean. And then we have a large size sandwich bag, and we're just gonna cover this. Again, we don't want germs on anything, we don't want pathogens on anything, and we don't want to spread germs anywhere else. So I'll cover that. And we just make sure it's taped up nice. Now when we're using this and grabbing this, we never want to touch the top. We want to always touch the plastic, because you're going to be tattooing, you're going to get blood and plasma and ink on your hands, so we never want to touch the top. And then when we're spraying this into a paper towel, we also want to make sure it's far away, because if it splashes and it splashes back on this, and you've been using the paper towel, it's just as bad as touching this. So that's that. Next is a cup of water. If you're going to be switching colors, black, white, red, between colors, you want to make sure that the needles are washed properly, just so you don't spread the colors around. So I would just fill this with water and just set it over here. Some people say distilled water for everything you do tattooing, but because you're going to be drying it off and everything, I don't care if it's distilled. I mean, it's just to clean. These little plastic sleeves, they sell them at Worldwide Tattoo, Cam Tattooing. if you don't want to actually go out and buy some of these, you can just do the same thing with Saran wrap. Just make sure your cord is wrapped up really good. Some people cut the ends off, but with this type of clip cord, I just like to slide it through, and then I'll just press it through in the end. It'll just attach straight to the tattoo machine. That's what the clip cord is for. And next thing, prepackaged supplies. There are a lot of tattoo artists that like to use metal grips and make their own needles. We buy everything prepackaged, just so before and after you're done, you can throw it away. To a lot of people, it's really important that they see these be opened in front of them, so they know they're not getting reused things. And I believe in that it's important to just make the customer feel comfortable. And there's a lot of people that use still and reusable supplies that they autoclave, and that's okay. But you never if your artist is doing that, make sure you look for certificates that say that they use approved autoclaves, that they send in for spore testing and things like that, because they could just say they're autoclaving, or they could autoclave it improperly and not have a spore test done. So it's really important that you know where the supplies are coming from and how they're used. Open this. I like to set the needle in the tube before I put it in. It just makes it easier. And if you're not used to needles, remember that the hoop end goes to the left, and you want always the flat side down. If you don't do this, you're running them backwards, and they wiggle and things, and they just don't set right, and they don't tattoo properly. So just make sure they're facing the right way. Just set this onto the actuating bar on the machine. Rubber bands to keep it back. I'll explain furthermore on the purpose of the machines and how they work and stuff in another video. And then also the depth of the needles and things like that. And that's pretty much how that looks. And then we'll bag it just like we bag everything else. And we believe it's especially important to bag the tattoo machines, just because if you're working in an area or you rush across something and you get blood, pathogens, material on the tattoo machine, you never really autoclave the machine, so it's important that this remains covered also. And then you just attach that clip cord, and then you're pretty set up. Then you just put the cups for inks, pour your inks, have your paper towels ready, and you're pretty much good to go. And that's pretty much the proper way. We always, like I said earlier, we always keep everything inside the work area. If something leaves the work area, we're going to calcite it anyway, but just try to be clean. Everything is about clean. And then after I'm done setting up, I throw away my gloves when I start. I put on new gloves beforehand, and after I'm done, I'll throw away those gloves, and before I tear all this down to throw it away, I'll put on new gloves one more time. So, gloves are cheap, use them often, throw them away, make sure everything's clean, and that's about it. And thank you for sitting through part 2, and leave me some comments if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer them, and I'm sure there will be many more videos